Hey, it's Maddie. It's time for the Launch Week 9 wrap party. I am joined today by Nathan Wallace, the CEO and founder of Turbot, Cody Bruno, our lead architect and developer, and finally Bob Tordella, the CRO here at Turbot. So let's dig into Launch Week 9. Monday was all about guardrails and using AI for cloud teams. There are three main things announced on Monday. One was intelligent assessment, which is natural language guardrail policies powered by AI. So we now support AI-powered policy creation using natural language prompts, which lets you define custom governance logic by just simply describing what you want to check. Intelligent fixes, this is where when control alerts trigger, intelligent fixes automatically generate comprehensive remediation guidance, which is tailored to your context and your situation. And then finally, we had our intelligent summaries. So these are policy packs with complex calculated logic, and multiple policies can now be automatically summarized using AI to explain what their objectives and expected behavior are. So Nathan, what are the key benefits that really drove the development of these AI features and guardrails?
Yeah, look, I think the main thing for us was like, how do we make some things that are complicated just easier to understand? So, I mean, often what you're trying to do in this world is, in world of governance is you've got the main cloud team who are trying to put some rules or posture around the organization so that they can give a lot of freedom to app teams. Now, those rules can end up being pretty complicated in enterprises. Like, oh, here's our tagging strategy, and it's this when it's this, and you got to do that. And if it's production, do this. It gets complicated, right? And then you end up saying to someone like, oh, I'm sorry, this resource doesn't comply with the tagging strategy. The question is, what the hell's the tagging strategy? I can't tell because it's implementing this whole set of rules, which are quite powerful and complicated at scale. But now with AI, we can just automatically summarize that. And it can basically say, oh, when it's prod this and when do that, and into a couple of short paragraphs, it just gives people so much more information and context about why they're not meeting the standard or what they need to change. And that's just way easier for everyone to work with and understand. So for us, the main driver was making those more complex things simpler. Whether it's writing a new control from scratch, hey, for buckets like this, I just, when the tag is that, I want to do this. And when it's, otherwise I want encryption to do that. Like you can write whatever natural language description you want of that. We might have supported that already through a bunch of controls, but now it's just so easy to write a new one and work out what the outcome of that is and say how you want that outcome described. Or for policy packs we already had that might have a whole bunch of policies in them. Our existing customers already have those. They're very powerful, but they have complexity. Now they can get summarized down to a couple of paragraphs. Or if you're the team who has to fix the stuff, now you've got a good summary of what's wrong. And we also use AI to build, a full set of remediation steps so you can do it yourself. I mean, Guardrails has always had the ability to automate this away, so you don't have to use it. But for a lot of people, they might not want to do that. They want the ability for the team to actually make the change. And now we're just trying to reduce the friction of that as much as possible. Simple explanation. Here's what's wrong, and here's how you can fix it. So to me, the big driver of this was really taking that complexity and just making it way simpler.
Bob, you have a lot of conversations with customers. Anything to build on from what Nathan was saying, where you think the big impact of these features will be for folks using guardrails in their enterprises?
Actually, just to double down on what Nathan said, I mean, the context is really key here, is that there is so much going on in these environments. I mean, you have cloud teams that are trying to push out changes for security misconfigurations or remediate misconfigurations. You have FinOps type of changes that are happening in the environment trying to optimize. You have all these policies that are swirling across multiple accounts, different nuances to exceptions to the rule. There's all these nuance of conditional logic of, this policy is in place only when this condition or that condition is met. And so, with that, there is so much context that needs to be understood across your environment, all different types of matrices. And so the more that we can lean into emerging technologies like AI, that's really good at generating context, the better. And one of the things that I thought was interesting on the approach that we took was that you just bring your own AI keys so that you're in full control, and it's completely optional if you want to lean in and use those features. But just making it simpler, getting the right context right on the screens that you're at, I think is really our starting point to leveraging AI in Turbot Guardrails. The customers are really excited about, just kind of grokking their whole ecosystem a lot easier.
That's really the thing, right? It's about understanding what you've got in the easiest way and the most accessible way possible. Tuesday, we really focused on AI for developers. There were two big announcements on Tuesday of this launch week. One was our updated documentation and development guides for folks who are building with Steampipe, Powerpipe, and Tailpipe. And these are our battle-tested prompts and workflows to really help you use AI to accelerate plugin and mod development. And then we also had a whole bunch of updates across all the pipelings that we were able to really accelerate our development on that. We had 2 new perimeter mods, 8 new cost controls, 4 compliance framework updates, 7 AWS tables with SDK v2 migration, and a partridge in a pear tree, right? So Cody, we have learned a lot from using AI and LLMs in the engineering work that we do here at Turbot. What were some of those key learnings that we found?
During the process, we tried out a bunch of different tools and models, and really just wanted to see what was out there, but also how, to your point, how could we use them effectively, and what were some things that we had learned on the way to become more effective and work with the tools a bit better. In particular, we really started leaning into some of the IDEs like Cursor, Windsurf, VS Code, trying those out and kind of seeing how to work well within those. I think as we worked more and more with those, the biggest thing that we found to be effective when working with, working in a Steampipe plugin or in a Powerpipe mod is really from a prompting perspective, is really to start simple and then build on that over time. Instead of coming in with a really large set of guidelines and really long markdown docs with XML tags and 50 different points that the AI should follow, and layering on Cursor rules or Windsurf rules on top of those, and trying to do a really one-shot large prompt to generate from start to finish. Instead, we found that to be a bit clunky and inconsistent and hard to track. Instead, we went a bit simpler and said, well, let's just try to start with a smaller prompt, add some references in, because we have a lot of that context that the models can understand and pick up a bit on their own. And then along the way, kind of see what mistakes or just unintentional things the models were creating or generating. And then from there, kind of tweak the prompts to build over time until we got to a really set of effective prompts, which we then shared on the various doc sites out there. But ultimately, start simple, build on that, and then kind of see how to make your prompts more effective through actual testing, through a couple iterations.
Yeah, and then Nathan, what have been your observations about how this changes the way we think about development here at Turbot using AI and LLMs more?
Well, I mean, it's exciting. It's got to be one of the most exciting times to be working in tech, I think, for just the sheer amount of power we have right now and what we can do. I mean, the first and obvious one is we can move faster. And we always at Turbot have been focused on how can we do more with the resources that we have. That's one of the differences, being bootstrapped versus, funded or something. It's all about, efficiency and how to drive that forward. And so moving faster for us is really exciting. The second one, though, I think is like having this feeling for the team as much as possible, wherever we can, that AI is this superpower. Everyone's been granted this superpower now, and you can be more ambitious. You can do more than ever before, not just your old job faster, but you can think bigger. We talk a lot about having high agency at Turbot, and I think we're seeing that more than ever now. It's like, write a script for that, automate that out, improve the way the descriptions happen, write something that can evaluate the code. Like, there's this superpower now of I can learn anything and I can do anything. And that to me is like a real enabler for us as we've gone through the process. So we're trying to tap into that and do more of that with everyone here. A couple other quick observations. I could wax lyrical about this all day, as I can many things, but the most effective way to work with AI is to think of it like you're working with a colleague or a peer. So you don't say, do this. You say, how do you think we should solve this problem, and chat with the AI about it? And then after you come with a solution, you start to ask the AI to help you build that out. And then you give it feedback or you ask it for suggestions. And the more you think of that, like you're managing people or collaborating with colleagues, the more effective the AI will be. And so we've been trying to learn as an organization how to do that more and more and have conversations of that style, which has been really interesting. And then, I think the next part we're sort of working through as an organization is how to get good at that. Like it's been a general skill we're all trying to get good at progressively through our careers. Like it's one of the biggest skills you learn as an engineer, from junior engineer through to software engineer through to senior through to whatever architect is. How do you collaborate? How do you communicate well? How do you define problems? How do you refine, have the eye to refine what's good or bad about it, like curate that down? Think of Rick Rubin talking about his like music producing, right? Having the taste to decide what's good. And with AI now, we can build so much so quickly. So much more of our job now is to work out what's good and how do we move that forward and how do we explain the context well to the AI. That's a real challenge, and it's a hard thing to learn quickly. One of the things we've got to get better at as an organization, and frankly, I think as an industry now, is how we're going to learn those skills quicker, teach those to people quicker so that they can really use the AI to achieve these amazing things. They have the passion and they have some of those skills, anything's possible. So it's probably a bit broader than the question about exactly what we learn from pods, but honestly, that's what I'm thinking about every day while we're working with AI right now.
Well, yeah, and we have evidence of result, right? In this launch week, we released a whole slew of new and updated mods across Steampipe, Powerpipe, Tailpipe. Cody, can you maybe dig in a little bit about how this new way of working specifically impacted the work we did in these mods and updates?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so ultimately, just to start, just to kind of build on what Nathan was saying, you kind of look at it as a superpower. They can go faster, they can be more consistent, and they can write better documentation. A lot of this is possible, in particular, in the Steampipe, Powerpipe, Tailpipe case when looking at plugins and mods. Actually, because a lot of what we have in those plugins and mods today, even before we started leveraging AI tooling, was really strong consistency. That's something that we always pride ourselves on and focus on in terms of our plugin structure, how we do tables, what do our descriptions look like, documentation, benchmark structures. In a way, easy for us to transition into using tools like Cursor VS Code, et cetera, the agents that they can then kind of look at our existing code and then pick up on our patterns, enable us to move faster that way because it understood it faster, but it needs to craft giant prompts, kind of like I was talking about a bit before. But ultimately where we are is we're moving a lot quicker and we're actually more consistent than we were before. At any given time can make a typo, do a wrong copy, paste, something like that. Whereas work with the LLMs, a lot less likely for that to happen. We still obviously review at the end and kind of just make sure everything looks good. But a lot of the small mistakes that we're used to seeing or someone would have to catch, not really there, which also in turn speeds up that review time or the release time for those plugins plus mods.
That's really awesome to see. And like you said, we pride ourselves on our consistency here, and this is really an enabler of that, which is great. 3 announcements that came on Wednesday. The first one was around Tailpipe. So we have enhancements to give more precise date range controls in our collection. We optimized Hive partitioning to really improve query performance on large data sets, and memory limits to prevent resource exhaustion when things are getting really intense. In pipes, we have a larger instance type, as well as being able to configure your storage sizes. And then we also shared that both Guardrails and Pipes have completed the annual SOC II Type II examination for 2025. So all about our commitment to security and compliance. So let's talk about pipes first. Nathan, what are the real main use cases that a pipes user might consider when deciding to step up maybe to a larger instance type?
So the larger instance types we have are bottom line for bigger customers. Like we've got large enterprises on there at the moment, right? Who have got now hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of accounts in there, and they want to have data tanks across more and more resources and query things live. And when you've got that much collection going on and that much, millions of records in there, you just need a larger database to get the performance you're looking for. So it really unlocks that. And for the live queries, it unlocks higher performance across the collection of that and better memory usage, etc., for those sorts of queries as well. So big customers doing more with data tank and more on the live queries need bigger instance sizes. So we'll keep growing as they grow. So it's a fun time.
Also, Nathan, we have the improved collection performance and control features around Tailpipe. What are some of the specific pain points that these improvements can address for folks who are already using Tailpipe?
Look, when you're collecting log data at that sort of scale, you need controls. Like you need the ability to say what you want, how you want it, and how fast you want to get it. And that's really what we let you do now. I mean, the simplest one that we've been asked for by multiple people was really, I just want to collect a specific range. We always knew that would come. And so but we had constraints on our time to get out there. But just being able to say, collect from this time to this time is really helpful. Even if people have all their logs in another system, like Splunk or something, right? Typically, they've got 90 days worth in there. Right. And it's really hard to say, oh, you know what? I just need the data from like this day back past that window. That's a hard problem. But with Tailpipe now, they can just go and collect 1 day's worth of data, pull it all in and start querying the crap out of it. Right. And that's really a lot of flexibility, even for like those specific one-off cases they might like to do, like that. So the from to made a big difference. The other controls are putting in memory usage, disk space usage, and then we did a whole assessment of the pipelining of how that collection happens, optimizing the way we did indexing in the Hive. And that comes from us learning from new data sets and tackling new problems. Like, we learned about better optimization of the Hive partitioning from doing all the cost and usage data. We're like, this isn't quite efficient enough, and we should be indexing it in a different way. So it's just us learning lessons from working with different users as they scaling out their Tailpipe usage. It's still super early days for Tailpipe. What is it, a couple of months old, right? So we're like learning how to do that and then just optimizing that back into the engine. So it's all about faster, more stable collection.
And Bob, like we said, we've completed our annual SOC 2 Type II examination around guardrails and pipes. So from our customers' perspective, how important is this compliance certification, and what does it mean as enterprises are evaluating Turbot?
It's just a minimum requirement at this point. It's probably the most requested procurement item or security item, supplier assessment item than like a mutual NDA. And so typically we get the NDA and they're like, okay, send me your SOC 2. And so it is a expectation now for any SaaS vendor or any service organization to have. And for us, many years ago, we started that journey, got our SOC 2 Type I and then our Type II, and just been on this annual cycle for many years. So every year we actually treat it as an announcement that, we have the annual cert, here's how to get the latest, because it is so integral into our process, not only from a supplier standpoint, but also just all of our security and operational controls are baked into that for everyone in our organization. So how we maintain and safeguard our customer data, as well as our own internal processes, from how we handle bring your own device policies, how we handle encryption, cryptography standards, everything, transfer in process for new employees and transfer out. And so from a people ops to security to our customer success team to how we do system development, it is basically our entire process here at Turbot. And so for us, it's routine, it's everyday items for us, but we just try to celebrate that, we're continuously compliant. We have third-party audit that comes in to validate that. And it's just an expectation from all of our customers. So that's just our annual announcement as part of this launch week.
I think it's also a chance where we celebrate, because we spend so much time working to make these processes better and more consistent. Like, the last year, I don't know how much we've done to make more consistency around the way we do our releasing, the way we do our tracking of issues, etc., across all our different products, right, in different areas. So expanding scope, smoothing our process, like making that clearer and clearer and clearer. And every year we want to get better at it, and we take it super seriously, because
we do, yeah,
really right. So it's a nice, we can't normally celebrate that. It's not that exciting in launch week to go, yeah, we worked on a bunch of internal stuff. This is our chance to do that and feel good about it.
Yeah, and in general, SOC 2 has become like this checkbox for folks, and it is a minimum standard, but we do take it to heart. It is part of our process, and we're continuously improving them. Even though you could check the box and kind of meet standards, for us, it is like, how do we raise the bar constantly on our own standards of processes, make it easier, make it more automated, cover more scope, way beyond what are minimum requirements for SOC 2. So yeah, so we're very excited, even for like the routine announcement of we just got certified again, or a
Compliance party.
Yeah, exactly.
Compliance party.
Got to make compliance fun.
There you go.
Yeah.
The big announcements of Thursday were just, first of all, the new cloudgovernance.org website and library. It's a free, comprehensive guide of guides, frameworks, and just really proven resources to help bridge that gap between just visibility and then also organizational action. How are we actually governing our clouds? And part of that was a new book, How to Herd Clouds and Influence People. So you read this book, you can follow Gary. He's a cloud architect at Goliath Federal Bank, and he's going to navigate the hidden complexity of enterprise cloud transformation. Fun stuff like organizational politics, shadow IT, and just about building trust against siloed divisions. And this is all really based on real-world experiences. And we also, part of cloudgovernance.org is the Herding Clouds newsletter, which you can subscribe to for all sorts of news and updates and information in this really important space. Bob, when you came up with the idea for cloudgovernance.org, can you tell us a little bit about what your vision was?
Day in and day out, we're having customer conversations. We're talking about how to better govern your environment, and these come out naturally in conversations amongst ourselves and how we build the product and think about features, to conversations with customers and helping them through their cloud transformation journey and how they should better govern their cloud environments, and our own personal background stories managing cloud teams. And there's really a gap in the market on content around governance, and often it's overlooked. It's often thought about, well, it's just security. I got a CNAP tool and I got I'm alerting to my teams that something's wrong, or I got my FinOps tools for recommendations to lower my costs or optimize, or I got observability for when things are over or underutilized. And it is that, and that visibility factor of knowing what's wrong in your environment is there, but there's no definition about like, why are we doing this? How do I take that visibility and then action it within my organization? And so that whole process of actual governance, setting standards and rules, and how you actually deploy that consistently in a sustainable way, lack of kind of definition, there's lack of knowledge around that, and as well as like awareness that cloud governance is really this all-encompassing thing around your security, your operations, your financial controls, and your compliance across your organization. And we've been on this problem for years. I mean, when prior life managing a cloud team at a large enterprise to now working with hundreds of organizations on this problem set, leveraging our products and services. But we thought that, or the idea was sprung on, hey, I just don't want to create another blog post on this, right? And I don't want to necessarily create just another, here's the top 5 things you need to consider for controlling your Amazon costs. It's more of the process and the organizational challenge that folks have. And that's where cloudgovernance.org is more of an agnostic view and library and a newsletter to educate folks on this problem set and to start a community of practice for bringing those folks together, bringing those ideas and those insights out into the world. That's why we really focused on like cloudgovernance.org, and it's just a major contributor to that. And so, hope to kind of build a community of practice around that and get others involved. But really, for me, selfishly, it's a way to just talk about the problem, right? And not in those conversations one-on-one with customers, but publicly, and giving them assets to help them through that journey. And so the first, so we call the library on cloudgovernance.org. We have a governance 101 that kind of just talks through the practices, like why should you focus on governance? What is cloud governance? How do you actually implement it in your organization? So we frame those. We have education materials, but the goal is to keep coming out with more and more of those so that people can take checklists or they can take templates and they can implement that for their org. Completely product agnostic. It's more about the process. Right. And that is actually one of the major assets there is, how to herd clouds and influence people, where we wanted to tell that story around like a narrative to help it resonate with people around this problem that they face today, or if you're new into this journey that you're about to face at scale. And that narrative and approach is not just like another technical guide. It's more of all these stories compacted into this narrative of Gary being a cloud architect and navigating his way through a large enterprise are really the personal stories of many of us here at Turbot, as well as all of our end customers and working with those cloud leaders. And we wanted to basically bring together a story about talking about the human side of governance and why it's such a challenge at these large enterprises, where it's not just about alerting on what's wrong, it's about taking that, trying to work through all the organizational challenges, the internal politics, the siloed organizations, the multiple tools everywhere, the different checklists, the incidents that you're creating. But it's really hard to actually close that visibility out. It's really hard to action. It's really hard to improve your posture continuously and sustain that when there's all competing prioritizations and cost-cutting measures. You got audits that are coming and going. And so it's a real challenge for these cloud teams to really manage and make change in the environment. And so it was just a fun way for us to bring together that entire experience into a story to have it resonate with folks that are in it or outside of it. And so it's really an homage to us and others that are in that experience, and hopefully it resonates well with folks. I had a lot of fun time writing it and trying to bring those stories into a fun fictional way in the book.
I will say, I hope everybody watching is going to read the book and is having read it several times I, for one, became very invested in these characters and these people. So it's a good time. Nathan, in the book, there's talks about transforming from rigid checkpoints to flexible guardrails. When you think about that, can you kind of maybe explain a little bit more in practice what that means and why is this so critical?
The fundamental thing that's different about cloud governance is that in the cloud, we've given application teams all of this power. Like they create their own infrastructure, they deploy and build their own thing. That's the whole point of it, right? The flexibility to have this dynamic infrastructure that fits with your application, is designed to work as part of your application. And for that, they need a lot of freedom, right? And the nature of government or governance, of course, is to have a whole collection or a society of people working together to do things or live in a certain way while keeping them safe from each other, safe from outside forces, optimal and looked after as an environment, etc. And so in cloud governance, we're really trying to think about how do we achieve that for all our application teams to have the maximum velocity, the maximum freedom they can to make our business successful in a way while keeping our business safe, secure, efficient, and optimal, right? That's the fundamental balance. And so if you think of that as, the older ways where we went through central teams for everything or whatever, as rigid checkpoints of do this, then approve that, etc., you're stifling that flexibility and that creativity. And instead, you've got to think of it as putting guardrails around people so they can move as fast as possible, guided on the direction to go, safe from falling off the edge or making a mistake that puts the whole organization at risk. So to me, why do we talk about that concept in the book, or why do you have to think about that as governance? It's really asking yourself, how can we give the flexibility, the freedom, the velocity, the speed to our business and our application teams while keeping our enterprise safe, secure, efficient, so we can be successful overall? And that's the fundamental trade-off and balance of governance. And that's why it's such a hard thing to navigate. That's why the work we've done on the How to Herd book is, to me, so exciting, because it tells the story, the real story about some of those trade-offs and balances, right? It's like, something you can understand, invest in, you can see yourself in, right? As opposed to, other things which are a bit more, obscure or, let's say theoretical about what governance means. It really is a passionate, challenging discipline to do well. And when it works, oh my God, your org flies. Like you get that loop going, you know what you've got, you raise the bar to make it better, you get that change deployed, everything gets better. All the teams lift up, right? Your security lifts up, your cost gets more efficient. And you're just going around that loop over and over and over again. So telling people the story of how you can get that loop going is, I think, just so important, right? And I'm really excited we've managed to do it. And honestly, for us, it's made our life so much easier internally. We have such better language for it now. We understand the problem, I think, better than we ever have before, just by talking through and articulating in that way. So yeah, it's all about guardrails, not rules.
And then finally, Friday, we, as always, have our B-Sides post for all sorts of updates that maybe didn't make it into our main announcements, as well as tons of great contribution from our community, as well as great demos and other blog posts that folks outside of Turbot have posted. You can check that all out in the B-Sides post. Bob, I want to know, when you looked at this launch week's B-Sides, what was the one thing where you said, I need to email somebody about this right now and tell them about it?
Everything. But the sake
cop out
here. Well, one is like, there's always so much great stuff that comes in B-Sides. So for folks that do not read the B-Sides, please do, because it is like, there is just so much stuff we just can't pack in during the week. And this is yet another launch week with a lot of those type of features that are built in here in the B-Sides. But just to call out a few, on the guardrail side, on Turbot Guardrails, the custom webhook notifications. I mean, all of our customers have all different types of requirements of how they want to notify their end users. And we have really great built-in features around emailing or Slacking, Microsoft Teams, communications. There's also a Firehose feature to just deploy out to any endpoint. But this custom webhook notification just adds another capability to kind of lean into the existing features we have around the action and control templates and being able to push it to any type of custom endpoint. And so that's really exciting for a number of enterprises that want to take their notifications to another level. On the pipe side, I think the biggest one there was around creating more enterprise features to help our new enterprise customers that have been growing in our ecosystem, much more security controls that they want to manage in their pipes tenant environment. And the one feature that we called out in B-sides was around restricting the personal workspaces of their team members. So in pipes, for those who aren't familiar, you're able to kind of manage whether or not your individuals in the tenant have their own personal scratch space, their own development, personal workspace environment. And here you can restrict that so that folks don't run off usage charges or don't do things outside of your organization workspaces that you've set up. So that's another great feature that a lot of our enterprises are going to lean into. And then lastly, I'll just say, we are so thrilled and proud of our entire community across all of our Turbot products and our open source. It's just continuous contributions through ideas, through code contributions, through people writing blog posts about Steampipe or Tailpipe or other things about their use cases, what they like, and also constructive feedback. But then also just the code contributions. I mean, folks taking their time to make the open source projects better, as well as like even major features like adding new plugins. We had 2 great new plugins, FleetDM and Cortex, from the community. And so just always great to see that continuous improvement as the project maintainer. So really proud of the community this launch week.
Yeah, just to build on that, Bob, I'll say for me, I think the community corner, like you mentioned, is kind of my favorite. I've personally done a lot of work on Steampipe plugins and Powerpipe mods and things like that. So I have a bit more personal investment in that, but I'm just always happy to see those kind of come up, to know that people care about the plugins, care about the mods, care about the things that we're creating. And they not only care, issues are always great too. We kind of get alerted to that, but just really nice to see people just care enough to also, create new PRs, create plugins, especially things like that, where they just care enough to take the time and the effort to understand what we're doing and contribute back and ultimately make all the pipes products just better overall.
Yeah, if you, watching this and you're like, there's this, I wish there was this new this table that I don't have, this feature in a mod, maybe a detection or anything. The good news is, thanks to all the great work that Cody and his team did in this launch week, we've got really great guidance to help it make it even easier for you to do. And maybe you'll be featured in the launch week 10 B-sides. Thank you everybody for joining us for this launch week 9 wrap up. And thank you, Nathan, Cody, and Bob. I am really looking forward to seeing what we do in launch week 10.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Benny.